you better not be touching it.
And you have to go in front of everybody in the liquor store and buy your American booze.
We're not only in a trade war, we might be in real war.
I wouldn't say that he was begging us, but what is a step before begging?
We have to continue our resistance to the United States. The United States is a country in collapse.
Oh boy, have the last 24 hours been tough for the Liberal base. After the announcement that a deal had been reached between the US and Canada, which includes putting back American booze on the shelves. So this led to countless Liberals going online and posting downright hilarious meltdowns. So today we're going to recap the best of this collective insanity, have a good laugh in the process, and mine all of that salt from their shed tears. But it's not all fun and games, as more details emerges from the negotiation, and the reaction coming out from the media and politicians will blow your mind. My name is Ali Daniel, and this is The Right Call. Like, share, subscribe, hype this video up. Any interaction on this channel helps push the truth out, and maybe someday help break that CBC-induced coma that so many Canadians are under. And if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button, because if you love liberal meltdowns, you found the right place. So part of the trade deal is the announcement that American alcohol will finally be restocked on the shelves of Canadian stores. And oh boy, has that sent the Liberals into a frenzy. Who would have thought that American alcohol was secretly the kryptonite of the average Liberal? So pour yourself a glass of your favorite bourbon, or maybe a glass of Napa Valley wine, and let's go through this together. It's Friday, let's have some fun.
Okay, fellow Canadians, when that American booze goes back on the shelves, you better not be touching it. There is going to be a stigma attached to buying American booze like there is to wearing a MAGA hat in downtown Toronto.
Or like not wearing your mask on your face while grocery shopping just a few years ago. I lived through it. I know exactly the collective insanity that the Liberal voter can exhibit. It will be glorious.
You deserve, if spotted with such, to have a fucking egg thrown directly here.
Yep, once again, showing their pacifist tendencies. If you don't agree with their point of view, they resort to violence. But wait, it gets much worse.
America flushed our friendship down the toilet. That is gone, okay? They were fine with cratering our fucking economy. Buying American booze is going to now be the equivalent of walking into the bathroom and seeing your hot cousin getting out of the shower. It may look good, but do not under any circumstances touch it.
What? I'm not sure about that analogy, bud. What a weird thing to say. I don't think he thought that one through, and I don't know what kind of world he lives in, but that kind of thought has never ever crossed my mind. And it says a lot about these individuals. Morally righteous indignation on the outside, but deeply depraved on the inside. Then we have the textbook liberal demographic exemplified in this video.
Hey everybody, Boomer Sue here. Bringing back booze. I get it. We got to negotiate with the orange shit stain. You know, the toddler in chief. We have to appease him somehow, tell him what he wants to hear, make him feel like he won. Whatever.
Boomer Sue, he did win, and we'll touch on that a little bit later in the episode, but I got the receipts.
But I have an idea. So in the LCPO, we cordon off a back room. We put a door with a little window in. You have to knock on it. They slide the window open, you know, like in the 1920s speakeasies. Just like that. They say, what's a code word? You say traitor. They say, okay, come on in. And you have to go in front of everybody in the liquor store and buy your American booze. That should stop some of you.
Oh yeah, that's going to stop so many people. In a time when Canadians are struggling to make ends meet, if they want to go buy alcohol, I can promise you they will buy what's cheaper, or their favorite liquor, period. Very few Canadians, I refuse to believe that many Canadians are out there boycotting the US purposely. Okay, once the alcohol goes back on the shelf, you'll really get to see the resolve of these individuals. A few cuckoos will. We'll talk more about that in a bit as well. But for the most part, yes, I believe there's going to be a bounce back of American alcohol sales. But watching that video makes me realize that so many Canadians are mentally unwell. Next time you wonder how in the hell Carney can still be polling so high in Canada, you can look at Boomer Sue right here. She represents the base of Mark Carney. And I really wonder, doesn't Boomer Sue have kids? Or grandkids? Doesn't she see firsthand the struggle that the younger generation of Canadians have to contend with due to the last decade of liberal policy? Doesn't it bother her? Before jumping into more crazy liberal videos, on a personal anecdote, my father was not so far away from some rhetorics you see nowadays on the liberal boomer side. However, when my first son was born, his mentality shifted completely because all of a sudden he got to see the next generation after me and the reality he's growing up in and the craziness, the lunacy that this country is exhibiting. And it really had him wondering and reassessing all of his beliefs and realizing, wait a second, this is not looking good at all for Generation Alpha, let alone Gen Z, millennials, whatnot, but Generation Alpha, they're going to be suffering. And now you can't find a guy who despises the liberals more than my father. But moving on the next liberal meltdown, none other than Laura Babcock, the unhinged.
We're not only in a trade war, we might be in real war. And the last thing we need is for anybody to take our patriotic battle cry of elbows up to Canadians and mock it and put it down. When Pierre Poilievre says elbows down, he is echoing MAGA talking points and attacks on our country. You can criticize Mark Carney all you want. It's your job. But you don't have to do it by denigrating Canada's sense of power and purpose and patriotism in this critical moment for our sovereignty and our economy.
A real war? Are these people okay? And then conflating elbows down with being MAGA, where does that come from? Are you serious? Look, if Canada's sole sense of power and purpose, as she puts it, comes from a dumb slogan, and yes, it is dumb, then, I have bad news for you. Canada has much bigger national identity problems than the elbows down point. So on the point of the real war thing, it explains why liberals have such deep visceral reactions to what's happening with Trump. They legitimately believe that we are about to face a Ukraine-style invasion. Oddly enough, if that was the case, we'd still probably find a way to send our money all the way over to Ukraine instead of investing it on our own national defense. But okay. The best part about watching Laura Babcock is actually listening to her, but muted. Okay, the facial expressions make it that much better. like what's going on there? You can just imagine anything. Watching her muted is the best gift ever. Oh man, completely unhinged. And again, sadly, the liberal base. I love that I froze it on this frame. Anyways. Now, Laura had this to say on X about alcohol coming back on American shelves. No US booze, watery. No US dairy, gross. No US produce, explosive diarrhea. Man, I'm not making this up. No US travel, ICE Gestapo. Canadians will boycott American goods and travel until scourge of Trump and MAGA is long gone, regardless of any new trade deals. We have freedom of choice. Well, I replied, happy to nullify Laura's hard work of resisting the US by drinking an old-fashioned, with Maker's Mark bourbon, my favorite, buying a fat jug of milk at Publix. Publix is the staple grocery store in the state of Florida. If you know, especially the pub subs. Ooh, baby. Patronizing the Holy See Trinity. Chick-fil-A, Cracker Barrel, and Crumble cookies. My favorite. And don't come at me with, oh, you can find them in Toronto. It ain't the same. To be honest, it's been Canadianized in all the wrong way. With the TFWs. And flying to Sarasota. Yes, I'll be in Sarasota in a couple weeks for business, but nonetheless. Freedom of choice, baby, right? But she wasn't the only crazy liberal pushing for a boycott. Proud Can Rob said this to say, I'm supportive of lifting the ban on US alcohol. Okay, starting well. I'm also supportive of a full-on boycott on US products. Okay, that did not go well. We Canadians are the nicest people, but don't ever bully us, disrespect us, or threaten our sovereignty. So let this be my official announcement. You're getting the scoop first, right here on YouTube. I'm officially boycotting their boycott. For every bottle of American alcohol a liberal doesn't drink, I'll drink 3. 1 for me, 1 for them, negating their entire boycott, and a 3rd one, just to spite them. So, who's joining me in this boycott? Let me know down in the comments. Then you got Wab Kinew, the Premier of Manitoba. My biggest mystery yet. A dude with a past of domestic assault, allegedly, and who has the temperament of an arrogant man-child.
2 votes. Now, the Premier did say that he... I asked the Premier numerous times to please be respectful while I asked the question from Manitobans. Order. This is unbecoming of the Premier. It is unfortunate. I'm just asking to be respectful. I'm asking questions. Ask questions. And this is the behavior we're getting from him. It's unfortunate. So the Premier knows he can do it and pass it. So the simple question is, will the Premier stop laughing? No. Nobody else? No. I'm asking about the budget bill. And the answer is no.
Anyways, I'll never understand how this dude became the premier of a province, but hey, he came out in a hilarious way, undermining Carney in the process, while also pulling his best impression of Doug Ford and also undermining the deal with the US.
Told by the Prime Minister that he wants us to put the booze back on the shelves.
Without giving you details?
They gave us some details, and other stuff they said they're still nailing down. So he was, I wouldn't say that he was begging us, but what is a step before begging? So I get it from his perspective. Why does he want us to take the booze off the shelves? He's the one who got on the phone with Donald Trump, which, you know, I don't think any of us want to be on the phone with Trump or in a photo with him.
I like that. I think that's pretty cool. Like, you know, respect the office of the president. You can disagree with his policies or even his character. You still respect the office he represents.
But there you go. Somebody has to do it. Thank you, Mark Carney, for doing it. And you can understand he got to a place where he can recommend a deal to Canadians. But I think for the rest of us, okay.
Is the Prime Minister saying to the provinces, if you don't put the booze back on the shelves, we won't have a signed deal by the end of the week?
Yeah, effectively. Yeah.
It sounds like you're not enthused at the process.
That's right.
Of putting booze back in this house. But you
Leave it there is my, when we put the American booze back on the Liquor Mart shelves, Canadians, leave it there. Spend your money on Canadian products that are going to employ people in our country and that have an administration that respects Canada.
This morning
First, is it me? Or does he have this air of arrogance about him? And second, as the final details are being hashed out in this trade deal, did you think it was a smart move to insult the president of the US in that fashion? Dougie Boy pulled the exact same stunt recently, calling Trump a bully.
Not constantly on the defense with President Trump. We need to stand up to the bully, and we need to hit him tariff to tariff.
Again, call me crazy, but it really comes across as Canada is actually being the bully. All of our politicians are being oh so arrogant with this anti-American rhetoric. And I feel Wab Kinew, a bit like Doug Ford, is just trying to derail the entire deal because it's good policy for him domestically. Hating Trump is apparently very popular for premiers.
We were told on the advisory council, and I can tell you this, that the United States is watching very carefully the commentary in the media being made by Canadians, not just regular Canadians, but politicians as well. Any word that's been uttered in the last 24 to 48 hours is going to be poured over and scrutinized by the US and by the trade teams who are negotiating. Anything that we say here that could harm the negotiations, I think is not a necessarily good thing, quite frankly. And I wish that Mr. Kinew hadn't said the things that he said, because I'm sure it caused some problems for our negotiators at the table, at the very least explaining what the heck he was talking about.
But yet, that didn't stop anything, because even CBC commentators were not spared in this meltdown.
Okay, so it's business, not personal.
Well, I would say, you know, we have to really see this as business very intensely, right? And we need to understand what is best for us. You know, no deal that we make means that we don't have to continue our resistance to the United States. The United States is a country in collapse, and we cannot be attached to it. It is being. We need to throw ourselves out of the bus that is going off the cliff. But that doesn't mean like not ever allowing U.S. booze on our shelves again. It really doesn't. Although I don't think I'll ever buy it again. But I think that's because I've found better alternatives. Like, I genuinely think there's better things than Jack Daniels in this world. That's for sure.
Stephen Marsh, always good to speak.
A country in collapse? Interesting definition of collapse, but again, his definition of American booze is simply Jack Daniels. The US has the world's largest economy, deepest capital market, dominant reserve currency, leading technology firms, biggest military might, and is pulling in global investments at a scale that Canada can only dream of. Calling it collapse while Canada struggles with productivity, housing, investment, and per capita growth, well, is less analysis, and it's a heck of a lot more projection. And then you have all the printed media drafting their own version of virtue signaling, trying to nudge Canadians into not buying American alcohol. CBC, a bad taste left in my mouth. Will Canadian buy US booze again? The Globe and Mail, US alcohol may prove hard to swallow. CBC again, if US booze returns to shelves, leave it there. Globe and Mail again, Canada, it may come back to the shelves, but do not buy the US booze. Oh, so objective, as usual. Now, details are still very sparse regarding the trade deal supposedly reached between the US and Canada, with most details coming from the US, which really has me wondering, where the hell is our Prime Minister? Or is it that the deal is oh so bad that the silence is actually a sign that he's struggling to find a positive spin for this entire debacle? One thing remains clear, however. It is a monumental failure for Carney. And I'm saying this objectively. Sure, I dislike Mark Carney as a leader, but in this instance, I'm basing myself purely on his own promises.
Good, because I'm a good negotiator. I have negotiated a number of situations in the past. I know how to manage crises.
25% reciprocal tariffs on an additional $29.8 billion of imports from the United States.
Canada is reeling from a new round of U.S. tariffs on steel and aluminum. President Trump hiked tariffs to 50% last night. As America's largest supplier of both steel and aluminum, it is a major blow to Canadian exports.
Much later.
Yes, sectoral tariffs will go down, but they did not know by how much, or they couldn't say with certainty. Bloomberg, for example, is reporting they're going to be cut in half from 50 to 25%.
I am Mark Carney. I'm the best of them all. I'm a great negotiator. I have managed crisis in the past. I would change the world, trust me. And it appears that it never happened.
We're in a stronger position today than when the trade war began.
Sure, bud. We're in a stronger position today than we were in the past. Okay. Honorary mention, though, to Yves-François Blanchet, the Bloc leader. Don't like his politics, but God, he makes a great Carney impression. Look, Mark Carney has no clue. He's a classic case of overpromise and underdeliver. So although no final deal has been reached yet, it's supposed to happen by tomorrow, fingers crossed, but here are the recap, if you wish, of what is supposedly on the table. First, American alcohol, back on the shelves. 2, supply management. Dairy supply management is being negotiated. 3, aluminum and steel tariffs, also auto tariffs. And 4, the Online News Act. So let's go through them together. The one that excites me a little bit is the Online News Act, although I am really bullish on dropping the entire supply management. We'll talk about that in 1 second. Right here in an incredibly not biased and level-headed Toronto Star article, a wink, wink, cough, cough, totally being sarcastic in case you didn't catch it. In the name of placating President Donald Trump and his band of oligarchs, the Canadian government may be getting set to kill its last remaining bit of big tech regulation, as if big tech regulations is good. It ain't. I'm told by sources not authorized to speak on the record, as it is usually, that Ottawa has told publishers to be ready for the death of the Online News Act. It would be just one concession offered up to alleviate, but not end, Trump's punitive illegal trade war, blah, blah, blah. Of course, more of your opinions in there. In short, the Online News Act requires the major social media platforms, search engines, and advertising technology companies to compensate Canadian news outlets for lost advertising revenue. The law has only applied thus far to Google and Meta, and the latter hates it so much that they've blocked Canadian access to news on Facebook and Instagram for the past 3 years. First of all, I can understand why America and Trump would dislike that. It disproportionately targets American companies. It's actually unfair practices. Also, it only favors the Canadian media, which I don't understand. If your quality of reporting is so good, you should be begging for social media to share your stuff. I'm not mad that my stuff is circulating on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok. I welcome it. I want the message to spread. But oddly enough, the media only wants it to spread if they also get paid for it. Well, guess what? If your content is good, people will go on it and then they'll read it and then you'll get paid for that. It's silly. But it's led to this incredibly unfortunate reality that Canada, aside from China and North Korea, are some of the only countries in the world where news is actually banned on social media. If you try to share a news article or go on a news profile on Instagram, for example, you get slapped with this warning. People in Canada can't see your content. This account is a news publication. Content from news publications can't be viewed in Canada in response to Canadian government legislation. So I'm glad to do away with that. Let freedom of information roar. Let it spread. We want that. An informed Canadian is a better Canadian. Yes, even if it comes from mainstream media, I still want the information to be freely shared and let people decide for themselves. Then we have tariffs. Rumors have it that steel and aluminum tariffs will be set at 25%, down from the current level of 50%. Auto tariffs will come down from 25% to 15%. Now, here's where it gets mind-boggling, like actually maddening even. Carney is locking in this exact same trade deal that we had back in 2025. The same 25% tariffs that Trudeau then called very dumb and that the CBC had a meltdown over. Then Trump raised it to 50%. And then Carney got it cut down back to 25%. And they're calling it a win. What crazy lunacy. The opportunity cost of the last year and a half wasted, the uncertainty that came with it, the lack of investment, just Canadians being unsure what to do. But only that, and also just the tension between our two countries and the souring of our relationship could have been avoided. We have the same deal. What took so long? And Pierre Poilievre's reaction was predictable. He's calling out Carney, as he should, but he also said something that I personally doesn't quite sit right with me.
Acceptable for Canada to accept a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum as part of a deal with the U.S.?
No, absolutely not. I'm very concerned about the deindustrialization of our country if our key industries pay one-sided tariffs. So I was at an aluminum company yesterday, and they say their competitors on the American side of the border are not paying any kind of tariff. Well, they are. So tell me how the Canadian company is supposed to compete against an American company when only our guy pays the tariff. I don't know how it's going to work. Mr. Carney's got to tell us how he's going to avoid the full deindustrialization of our economy if he accepts one-sided tariffs as part of this deal. We want the good deal that Mark Carney promised. Remember, he said that his entire election campaign was about elbows up, don't accept a bad deal. Well, one-sided tariffs on Canadian industry would be a bad deal. We want a good deal, and that means full free trade and open competition within North America.
Make no mistake. I'm glad that Carney gave in to Trump. I'm also glad that Poilievre is hammering the fact that Carney failed at delivering what he promised. Because it's true. But to hold off having a deal with the US because we want complete free trade with no tariffs is a pipe dream. Trump's second term was predicated on trade policies and foreign policies around tariffs. The entire world is dealing with it, and the US can get away with it due to their giant economic cojones. So Pierre is playing politics, and I don't fault him for it. It's his job, after all, as the leader of the opposition, to oppose the current government. But since I pursued the truth, it's important for me to highlight this. Now, my issue isn't that the deal means that certain industries may still face tariffs. My issue is that this exact deal was proposed a year ago. It's the opportunity cost wasted by Carney, like I mentioned earlier. And all this was caused by his own negotiation failure, and most importantly, the constant anti-American rhetoric. So there's another point that I disagree with Poilievre when it comes to what's being discussed in this trade negotiation. That of the dairy supply management.
Would you support changes to supply managed dairy to try to strike a deal with the Trump administration?
Well, what we do not believe that there should be unilateral concessions to the United States of America getting nothing in return. We believe that the United States spends tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars in subsidies to its farmers, which put our producers at a competitive disadvantage. And we believe in standing up for our farmers on this side of the border, including supply managed farmers. We believe that they produce an excellent product, and we don't accept the view that our farmers are at are getting unfair advantages over the United States. If you look south of the border, they're the ones that are doing massive subsidies that create enormous one-sided advantages in their favor. So we think it's time for our Prime Minister to start fighting for our farmers and putting our own producers first.
Look, again, I understand why he's saying it. I'm not a fan of it, but it does pander to a rural base, which is supporting the Conservatives. And I'm a Conservative voter, and I do really strongly believe that Pierre Poilievre right now would make the best leader for the country, the best leader not only for the Conservative Party, but also for Prime Minister. And God, I wish he was Prime Minister right now. Oh my God. But I've been against against supply management for a while, simply because it flies in the face of free market capitalism. I'm a big believer in laissez-faire economics. Let the market pick the winners and the losers and get government out of managing private enterprise.
Look, and I do want to ask you about dairy because it becomes so politically important in this country. Yes. Many dairy farmers live in swing ridings and so have, in some ways, outsized influence. And it is a constant irritant between Canada and the U.S. It is again this time. I think the Americans felt tricked in the last round of negotiations that they got access to producers but not to actual stores for their dairy. Some indication they're now getting access to stores. What does that mean to our domestic dairy industry?
It too has been in long-term decline. When it was announced by then Agriculture Minister Eugene Whalen in the first administration of Pierre Trudeau, so this was 1971, there were 150,000 dairy farmers in Canada, and it was introduced as the tool that was going to save the dairy farm. Well, let's fast forward over the last 60 years, and how many dairy farmers are there today? About 8,500 to 9,000. So we went from 150,000 to 9,000 dairy farmers. Now, I'm not saying it was only because of supply management. There was automation and changes in demand. But the supply management did not do what the lobbyists said it was going to do, which was save the dairy farm. They're down to a small handful. And I think every Canadian has to ask the question, are we going to sabotage a potential trade agreement to save, that's going to benefit 40 million Canadians, to save 9,000 dairy farmers, and mostly located in Eastern Ontario and Quebec. And I think we will conclude, as Australia did in New Zealand in 2000, when they ended supply management, it's easier to compensate those farmers generously and bring the system to an end. It will also bring down prices for milk dairy products because in Canada they were doubled as part of the supply management arrangement. So this will actually reduce those prices to ordinary Canadians.
For all the dairy farmers watching, his name is Ian Lee, so you can contact him with your complaints. Don't reach out to me. Ian Lee is the guy to complain to.
To quote President Ronald Reagan, if it moves, tax it. If it keeps moving, regulate it. And if it stops moving, subsidize it. That's government for you. And I don't think that's good for an economy. Now, if you've enjoyed this report and would like to find a way to get yourself involved with the channel, aside from liking, sharing, commenting, hyping, subbing, all the good stuff, if you want to take it a step further and you have the ability to do so, you want to support the channel financially, I have a link in the description of this video to Patreon. It's $8 a month if you want to be recurringly helping the channel, or if you rather just a one-time donation, I have a link to PayPal. Every single dollar that you viewers generously donate blows my mind every time. And like I see it pop up on my phone and I am in awe because it's incredible, but it also affords me the ability to sit right here, spend hours researching, prepping, and recording these videos because, oh boy, we need to counter the CBC-induced coma that Canadians are under, or sometimes just laugh at liberal meltdown. If you haven't seen a last video, I break down more in depth the details of the deal that is supposedly having been reached right now. And well, click on it. Go watch it. It's important. We need to stay informed. Super, super important. But it's also Friday, so I'm going to go enjoy my weekend. I hope you do so as well. My name is Elliot Daniel, and I'll see you next report.